right. Hello, everyone. Official welcome to everyone joining us today. I already see our speakers joining. Hi, Linus, Andrew, and Anthony. Slowly joining in. While we are all preparing, official welcome to everyone joining us today in this sunny afternoon, at least very sunny here in Amsterdam. My name is Kalina. I am the brand and comms manager here at Relay 42. Today is actually really exciting because we're releasing the results and the findings of our global study on how CMOs are preparing for the cookieless world. And the official release of this report is actually on Thursday. So it's in 2 days' time from now. So if you are here today watching this live and not the recording, you're going to be really among the first people to see those results. I would like to introduce you to our speakers today. We're very, very fortunate to have the writers of the global study, Linus Grigoriadis, who is the director of London Research, and Andrew Campbell, MarTech consultant and London Research writer. Welcome, guys. And of course, they're joined by our own Anthony Botibo. Many of you know him because he's a CDP expert and a head of marketing at Relay 42. And also was really heavily involved in the writing of this research and analyzing the data. And believe me, there was a lot of data to be analyzed in this one. So welcome, everyone. Very happy to have you here with us today. So last bit of technical admin. This is the platform called Denio. What it's important for you to know is that you're going to hear the speakers, see the presentation at all times. And on your right-hand side, there's the chat. The chat is private, which means that we're going to see your questions, we're going to see what you're talking, but just to keep everything really secure, you might not see other people's questions, but feel free to ask us at any time, and then we're going to handle the questions in the end of the session. And this is also where we're going to put a few questions for you in a little poll that we have prepared. So with that, very quick. The program is very straightforward. We're going to present the key research findings. There are a lot, so we're just going to focus on the highlights. Then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion, and then in the end, Q&A. The whole session should take about 45 minutes, then we're ready to go. So to kick it off, as you guys know, the topic of this research was really the readiness of brands for the upcoming demise of third-party cookies. And we really wanted to also understand where you stand in this topic. So I'm going to do a little poll asking you, is your marketing team already preparing for the demise of third-party cookies? Answer A, yes, we already have some solutions. B, a little bit, but mostly orientating. C, we haven't done any preparations. Or D, I have no idea. I have to be honest, I put the last one in because it was one of the popular options in our own research. So it seems to be only fair and realistic to have it here as well. And we already see the results coming through. And I think you all should be able to see it. So about 50% are in option B, a little bit, mostly orientating. 33% say, yes, we have some solutions. And 14%, we haven't done any preparations. That's great. And 0%, I have no idea. That's already very, very great. So with this, little bit of polling, and I see already more results coming. That's great. I want to open the floor and give the stage to Anthony, who's going to give us a little bit of context on why actually we initiated this project in the first place. Anthony, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Kalina. So I don't know how many people know this, but it was 1994 when the first cookie was actually dropped on a browser. In a browser called Netscape, if anyone remembers Netscape. So 1994, I was 14. So just goes to show how long we've been reliant on cookies. So I don't know, fast forward 24 years of tracking collection and use of cookies in digital marketing, and you get to 2018. So 2018, we all know that's when the GDPR was introduced, and really kind of set in motion, I would say, was a sort of new privacy era, as we've seen similar data legislation come along. So I'm going to skip a lot of those landmarks, and then, as we can see on the screen, right? So Mozilla through Firefox was probably the first browser to really bring or take the lead on the blocking of third-party cookies by default. And then Apple through Safari. I think we're all still, some of us, navigating some of the changes in iOS 14 and 15 as well. But now, as we move towards 2024, Google is now due to phase out third-party cookies in Chrome, and that's now set for Q3 of 2024. So, the statistics I last looked at, 65% of browsers are actually happening on Chrome, and that's across mobile and desktop. So there's a pretty fundamental change coming, right? So I guess the whole point of this survey was to work out, are we ready? So we thought we'd go find out. So met with Linus Gregoriadis and at London Research, and sort of talked to him about this and said, hey, can you help? And the aim was to go out and survey as many CMOs and marketing leaders as we could, from large household brands, enterprise, down to smaller businesses, and really discover, A, how prepared are they? B, what solutions are they experimenting with or looking at, or what solutions do they think are going to help them to thrive when third-party cookies are deprecated? And also, I guess, maybe learn the makeup of brands that think they are going to thrive versus brands that are not, and so those that are worried or struggling or yet to even think about the impact. So there's a broad range, and across I think 22 questions in total across many different capabilities in digital marketing. That's really what we wanted to find out. And as you can see there, the official launch is not is actually Thursday this week. So for all you lucky people on the session today, this is an exclusive preview, I suppose. But yeah, the full 44-page full report will be ready on Thursday, and all you guys on today will get a copy of that as well. Okay, so I'm going to first hand over to Linus, founder and director of London Research, to give us a bit of insight into the mechanics.
Yes, thanks very much, Anthony and Kalina. We were delighted when you commissioned us to carry out this research and see how well prepared brands are for this challenge, which you've outlined. And just to summarise the research report we're releasing on Thursday, and that really delves quite deeply into companies' marketing sophistication in areas such as data collection, journey orchestration, and real-time personalization. And obviously, we've got some highlights here, and it's good to unveil these results for the first time. And I'm going to be talking in fairly around some of the headline findings before Andrew really drills down a bit more into some of the detail and introduces our digital marketing maturity model, which he's developed exclusively for this project in partnership with Relay 42. Let's look at the methodology briefly. So how the research framework, essentially we carried out a survey of more than 300 CMOs and other senior marketers. And they work predominantly for large and enterprise level B2C focused businesses with at least $10 million in annual revenue. The survey was carried out in the spring of this year. Just to emphasize, we're talking about large organizations. 2/3 of the sample had annual revenues of at least $100 million, and just under a third had revenues of at least $1 billion. And we've done some slicing and dicing in the actual report to see some differences depending on how large the organizations are. And the vast majority of respondents are at From the UK or the US, it was an English language only survey, around 40% in each of these markets. And the best represented sectors are retail, about a third of the sample, and financial services was around a fifth of the sample. Okay, so one of the first things to make clear is that marketers are under no illusions about the scale of this challenge. We can see that just under 3/4, 72%, see the loss of third-party cookies as a major challenge for their brands. And that's because essentially their acquisition and growth strategies have, to varying levels over the years, become very heavily reliant on third-party cookie-based targeting. And thinking about the scale of the challenge, we see the loss of third-party cookie data in terms of the magnitude of the change for business as really similar to something like GDPR, which Anthony's already mentioned, and the need to comply to those ever more stringent privacy regulations. There's a huge amount of work involved. While the compliance side of things with privacy legislation, GDPR, while that's been historically a wider business challenge, and there's been some specialist teams and extensive IT support for this, the third-party cookie challenge has typically been very much something for the marketing function, pretty much on its own to resolve, and that's even despite the major ramifications for the organization in terms of its ongoing commercial success. So a lot really is on the shoulders of the CMO to deal with this. What I would say on a more positive note is that despite this challenge, almost 2/3 of CMOs do see this sea change as an opportunity. You can see here 61% of survey respondents say that this is actually a positive development and something which can help take their marketing to their next level. And it's not the only sort of positive finding from the survey. The research found that more than 3/4 said there was clear ownership for the integrated change management program that was required. 74% said their exec management teams are aware of the scale of the challenge and are committed to the proactive investments required to thrive. And more than 4 in 5, 82% said they felt they could deliver high-performing, privacy-compliant acquisition campaigns in the future. So it's certainly not doom and gloom. Okay, so this next chart shows the range of advertising solutions that businesses are already using in preparation for the deprecation of third-party cookies. And examples on the chart include Google Analytics 4, customer identity access management, and digital fingerprinting. Key takeaway here is that none of these tactics are yet being employed by more than half of companies. GA is the most likely solution being used, and that's up to 45% usage. But most tactics are really only being used by around 1/4 to 1/3 of businesses, suggesting that there isn't a silver bullet to this problem. Technology is not necessarily the answer. But maybe it is. I'm going to hand over to Anthony now. The key aspect of this research was really looking at the use of customer data platforms, and we delved into the results for companies using CDPs and for those not using CDPs.
Yeah, and just before I move on, I mean, we did a small event in London last week, and there was about 30 again senior marketers, CMOs from lots of very big brands in the UK, and we asked them, hey, you know, what solutions are you experimenting with? I actually picked on Google's Privacy Sandbox as one to ask about, and it was a quick like hands in the air poll, and 3 out of 30 admitted that they even knew what it was, let alone actually experimenting with it. And same for data clean rooms, you know. So, it's a bit of a smaller subset than this, but again, I think it just kind of shows really that there are these a variety of solutions that we can see on screen here. But are we on top of this? Are we ready to thrive? Not just stand still, but are we able to thrive when third-party cookies are fully deprecated? And I would say, based on that, no. One of the splits that we did in the survey, and we did many, size of business, region, lots of different ways to do it. But one of those was, one of the questions in the report was, have you invested already in a customer data platform or not? And as we've highlighted on screen, in terms of the positivity for when third-party cookies go away, customer data platform users or CDP users were 7 times more likely to see that shift as positive than non-CDP users. So it was a very, very significant split when we actually looked at that. Now, even though I work for and represent a customer data platform business in Relay 42, I'm not going to sit here and say that this suggests that you go and buy a CDP and you're magically more capable in this world. But I think what it does say is that if you have managed to get your senior exec board to invest in a CDP for a substantial amount of money and a lot of change that has to go on in the business, it can be disruptive, then you are in that type of business that recognizes the value of customer data, probably has someone representing customer experience at the board level. And so it just goes to show us a different type of business and a different type of mentality within that business. So and the other thing I looked at there was the somewhat negative impact, with 53% of non-CDP equipped businesses suggesting that it's going to have that negative impact. So and a real change there against the CDP equipped businesses. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting slice of the data to look at.
Okay. So I'll pick up on some of the detail there. I think Linus and Anthony have set the scene well. We're going to pick out and cherry pick some of the highlights, 10, 15 minutes or so, just to give you a sense of the research that was done and some of the insights that we took with it. So the first point to build on is where's that confidence coming from that Anthony's just referred to? Why are CDP users citing higher levels of confidence? Well, this was a split around the asking organizations how confident they felt in particular areas of digital marketing, the moving parts of digital marketing, of audience targeting and data management and analytics and reporting and personalization. So this is the work. This is how well equipped do they feel to do the work in the new world where third-party data signals are deprecated. And CDP users are exhibiting high levels of confidence across the board, but for me, it's the core areas of data management and data activation. It's the foundations of digital marketing that they seem more comfortable and confident in. So data management is collecting data, it's cleansing data, validating it, it's modeling the data to make it ready for use. And data activation is the consumption and provision of it to the marketing applications, to your decisioning and personalization routines, to your predictive modeling routines, to your website and e-commerce store. So I think for me, the confidence is based on that foundation of capability, and that unlocks and enables the other things that they feel able to do and probably feel more confident doing than the non-CDP community. So kind of cracking that open gives us a sense of why they're holding that view. We did another slice here on size of organisations. So here we're looking at a split by the size of business. So the £500 million plus enterprise businesses, through the mid-tier businesses, the 50 to 500 million, and then the smaller businesses, the $500 million and less. And it was asking them, how do you, what approaches do you currently use in terms of customer journey mapping in relation to customer relationship management programs? Because customer journey mapping is quite a good indicator of the level of sophistication and approach being adopted. And the reason we're poking at the bigger businesses here and looking at what they're doing is they tend to be early indicators of best practice. They tend to develop and apply it quicker because they've got the budgets, they've got the resources, they've got the agency and tech partners in place. And what we're seeing here is 23% of these enterprise brands are citing an approach that has high levels of integration across channels, high levels of personalization, sophisticated use of journey analytics. They're doing the higher order digital marketing. Interestingly, not far behind them are the mid-tier brands. So 21% of the mid-tier brands are also playing at that top tier. So it shows you that it's not a closed shop. This isn't exclusively the preserve of the business, big businesses. If you've got the right tech stack, if you've got the right resource pool, internal and agency partners, if you've got the right strategy, then you can play at this higher end of sophistication in terms of digital marketing. And by doing that, insulate yourself to a certain extent from the changes that are coming down the track with the loss of third-party data. So the big boys are leading the way. But if we go down the next level into the mid-tier of sophistication, so these are people who are saying, we are doing segmentation, we are doing differentiated customer journeys for different groups of people, we are collecting data, we are trying to surface that to users in terms of personalization and triggered communication. So they're not necessarily the leading edge of CRM and digital marketing programs, but they're in the game. And here we see 61% in total of enterprise businesses playing in that space. But interestingly, both the mid-tier and the smaller, if you add their responses to those two questions together, you're at 55%. So 55%, so not as many as the enterprise brands, but there's a lot of the next tier down brands positioning themselves well to move into this higher order space. So as Linus and Anthony pointed out, it's not doom and gloom. The world isn't ending, and it's good to see that generally people are positioning themselves to meet the challenge. They don't fully know what the challenge is yet, and they haven't met it, but they're certainly moving in the right direction. Next, we're looking at two particular areas of activity that characterise high-performance digital marketing: personalisation and analytics. And we're looking at personalization, two areas: personalization of owned media, so your website, your content hub, your e-commerce store, and then personalization offsite with paid media. So this question is about how well placed do people feel they are to recognize a returning visitor, to understand a website visitor's previous activity and personalize the experience as a result. So how can they differentiate the customer journey, the digital journey on that digital property based on the data that they've collected? So what we're seeing is that 58%, if you add together those three bottom bars, 58% of people are saying we can't distinguish people new and returning new customers and returning customers unless they've registered, unless they've explicitly logged in. So the other group of people are able to do that because of digital fingerprinting, because of permission compliant first party tracking on their website or their digital property. So those people, because the majority of visitors will be anonymous, they will be repeat visiting possibly. If you're able to identify that and discriminate between an existing customer and between the type of returning anonymous visitor that you've got, you're in a much better place to pull them through engagement and consideration, hopefully towards purchase. So that's quite a strong indicator of the level of sophistication that's out there in terms of owned media properties. And we're seeing the market is getting there, but there's still a group that are still having to get their technology and their processes in place to make sure that they're able to do that fairly fundamental activity. And then we can look at personalization from an offsite paid media activity. So this is predominantly Google and Facebook. This is about asking brands, how well placed are you to apply personalization across your paid media campaigns? How well are you placed to target audiences differently, to vary ad sequencing, to vary ad frequency, to test offers and different content and messages. So how well are you able to leverage the off-site paid interactions that you're getting with consumers and potential customers? And what we're seeing is that roughly a third are using basic personalization on those platforms. So for me, they're the ones that are at risk. The train's coming down the track for those people. The people below that aren't doing it or have got very basic kind of more one-size-fits-all approaches to the paid media, they're not going to miss that data because they're not using it. The people above that, in terms of sophistication, in terms of data collection and analytics and audience definition and ad tech integration, they're already building the bridge into the new world. So they're buffering themselves from it. The people that are most exposed are those people in the middle. So those 32% that are still relying on the third-party data sets from the big marketing platforms, the tide's going out pretty rapidly on them, and they're the ones that need to have a strategy in place to address that. And we looked at that ability and capability in terms of personalization on-site and off-site, and we split that by CDP, non-CDP. So what difference does that make for the CDP users? So this is about our on-site ability to personalize. So we're seeing that CDP equipped businesses, the turquoise versus the gray, that they're kind of nearly 3 times as likely as the non-CDP users to have the technology to recognize users, to personalize experiences, and to drive customer journeys that will leverage that personalization. So you've got a much bigger capability if you've got that data foundation in place. And if we look at offsite, it's an even bigger polarization, and it's an even bigger shift, with CDP users being 3.5 times more likely to say, we can use advanced personalization across our paid media. We are able to unlock the potential of our first zero second party data to define audiences. We are able to deliver those into the audiences and to drive our bid strategies, to drive our digital marketing campaigns. So personalization is a key competence. It's very much dependent on data, and you should be looking at it off-site, on-site, and you should be looking at what do I need to do to make sure that I can move beyond a world which is dependent on third-party cookies. And we also mentioned another kind of killer competence, which is the analytics, and particularly we were interested in advanced analytics. And so we asked a question here about where people had digital marketing capabilities, where they deem those capabilities to be advanced. So again, split CDP, non-CDP. As you'd expect, the CDP users are typically more likely to be adopting advanced capabilities across the board in terms of data collection, in terms of analytics and reporting, in terms of campaign planning, in terms of personalization. But the one that stood out for me was the analytics and attribution. So if you're into multi-touch attribution and marketing mix modeling and higher end predictive modeling, I'd say you're in the higher order of users. And what we're seeing is that the CDP users are 6 times more likely to be playing in that space because they're able to manage the data. Then they can activate the data by supplying it to the predictive models and the analytics applications, and then they can pipe it into the delivery applications, the website, the email program, the mobile app. And we asked a similar question with regard to specifically AI and machine learning, and CDP users were 4.5 times more likely to be citing that they were actively using those techniques. So there's a consistent pattern there where CDP users are taking their marketing programs through the gears. They are using that potential that data management and data activation gives them to drive better experiences. And we'll finish and wrap up with this maturity model that Linus referenced. We wanted to have a slightly more rounded view of the findings. It was really insightful to look at individual capabilities and attitudes to the loss of cookies in relation to specific capabilities. but we wanted to look at those capabilities in context, and we wanted to relate them to each other so that we can get a slightly more joined up view of where are we at and where do we need to get to. So this maturity model, it has 5 dimensions, and it's based on the end-to-end campaign cycle. If you want to do great digital marketing, you have to have great customer insights. So you have to be able to collect data, you have to be able to understand journey analytics and customer journey mapping, and what is a consumer thinking, feeling and doing. So you need to understand your customer and consumer. Then you need to feed that into your campaign planning processes. You need to use that data in terms of purchase intervals and purchase lead times and site visit frequency and content consumption to design better experiences. Then we need to deliver those experiences off-site through our paid media when they're in the early stages of consideration and awareness building and evaluation, and into our owned media when hopefully they're ready to transact. They're looking to get into that lower end of the purchase funnel, building up high levels of purchase intent when they're ready to make a purchase. And then hopefully we can take a measurements and we can understand what's gone on and we can look to test, measure and optimize. So the maturity model has 5 dimensions, and we calibrate the a responder's maturity level on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 is what we call generic, so it's a basic one-size-fits-all simple approach to digital marketing. Then moving into what we call a segmented approach, where you're probably using basic segment models, you're looking at developing differentiated journeys for broad cohorts of customers, and you're delivering relatively simple personalization on-site and off-site. Dynamic segmentation, dynamic maturity level is where you're going into more granular segments. You're using behavioral segmentation. They're more dynamic, they're more real-time, they're more cross-channel. So we're getting into a more sophisticated approach to digital marketing and higher order experiences. And finally, what we categorize as learning state is where you're in a much more of an adaptive, real-time, automated approach, delivering one-to-one marketing across channels. So what we're able to do is take all the responses and build based on a weighted average to questions that were a proxy for these capabilities. So we looked at questions that gave us a good reading on your capabilities in these areas. And we built a weighted average and we've mapped it. And the encouraging thing is the market as a whole is in that dynamic space. It's great that we're seeing that level of capability. We're talking about, as Anthony said, typically bigger businesses here, typically more mature businesses. So we wouldn't be surprised at that, particularly. We've got a broad correlation across the capabilities and across the dimensions, which again, we're not particularly surprised at, because if you've got very sophisticated approaches to data capture and customer insights, I'd expect those to be being played through your planning and delivered through your campaigns and then measured. So the findings were in line with our expectations, probably a little bit more advanced than I was expecting. And then finally, we cross-tabbed it CDP, non-CDP. We wanted to get a reading on what difference does the CDP make? Can we quantify that in very rudimentary, basic, high-level terms? And what this is telling us is that we're seeing a very consistent over maturity in the CDP responder base by about a stage. So typically the non-CDP users are in stage 2, high end of stage 2 in the segmented mode. And we're seeing the CDP users typically consistently in that level 3 dynamic marketing programs moving towards the higher order predictive. And remember, these are weighted averages, so it's an indicator, it's an aggregated view, but we wanted to just stand back from the findings and get that more holistic view of the findings and put them in some kind of context for you. And we're going to develop this further, but hopefully it gives you some sense of where the market is and where you might be, so that might provoke some thinking as to how you might move on from where you are now.
Yeah, if I could just sort of come in here as well. I mean, I go back to this event that we did last week, and one of the questions that kept coming up was, we know we need to invest in our first party data. It is a marketeer's problem. and how can we get the exec buy-in, and get them to realize the value of investing in our first-party data. How much money are we going to lose when third-party cookies are going to get deprecated? Is the question that they've got to answer. What's the risk to our business? And very difficult. But so what I'm hoping is that if you turn CDP into an investment in first-party data versus a non-CDP, which is perhaps you haven't invested fully, then I think a lot of what we've seen here in the report in terms of capabilities and positivity and solutions that they're looking at by that investment in first party data, hopefully a lot of these statistics could actually help in building or proving that business case. So just wanted to kind of wrap up on that, because what we're seeing here is that kind of extra level of maturity
and help structure it, Anthony. It might help you structure a conversation around we need to do, because if you slice the elephant up into more bite-sized chunks, you can talk about investments in analytics and insights, campaign planning and journey mapping, and then activate. It feels like you can hopefully structure a conversation that will be a bit more accessible for obviously exec teams that aren't rooted in the detail of this.
Yeah, entirely. Okay, so I'm going to throw some questions at you, Andrew, and really wanted to kind of, I don't know, take all of this to one side. What do you think is the real standout from the report? What really has stood out in, against maybe others that you've done?
Probably that. The scale of business analysis that we did that said, where are people? The mid-tier has definitely moved up a level and is better positioned than I thought to move into that higher order. So the enterprise businesses clearly are there first, but that 55% of both $500 million under and 50 to 500. They're the smaller and mid-tier businesses, and they are saying we are using segmentation, we are using personas, we are actively investing in our marketing tech stack to manage data. So the gap, I think the gap's closed. So I think that was kind of surprising for me. It wasn't surprising for me that CDP users are over-indexing in terms of confidence levels and perceive their capability, because there's a bit of an inevitability about that, because they're the businesses who have seen the need, they've got the strategy, they've made the investment, they're the kind of businesses that I would expect to be doing things better. But the other thing was around around the paid media. 32% of people are saying we're still on the Titanic listening to the orchestra when we know there's an iceberg ahead, and 32% of businesses, given the size of businesses we were talking to, generally our universe of responders was on the higher end of scale and maturity. So that number was a bit higher than I expected. So they were the ones that probably surprised me and stood out.
Okay, yeah, I think for me was the technology question, or not technology, but the solutions that businesses are looking at. I think the Google Privacy Sandbox, for me, I mean, at Relay 42, we've been kind of quite hot on that for the last 18 months or so. I think 27% said no idea. And I think that's coming. I think coming out of testing phase very soon. So so that for me was very interesting as well.
I think GA4 will push that on. I think GA4 things have got real for people, and I think teams have. It feels like once that first domino falls, then that might be the thing that triggers a build up of momentum. You'd hope so, because I think it does need that stimulus. Yeah,
for sure. Again, another question: what would you say is going to be the major challenge for marketing leaders? In order to make the change? I know I've already kind of pointed out a bit there, but
I think for me, probably the development of a compelling digital value proposition, and lots of things are changing, and cookies are changing, and tech's changing, and yeah, but regulations changing. But you've still got to turn up and be useful for a user. You've got to be valuable enough to a consumer for them to give you their data. And the brands that are able to engineer those value propositions through the journey, in early stages of purchase consideration, through engagement, through active consideration, through the brands that are able to solve problems and add value will be the brands that get data. And they will get data because they're valuable enough to engage with. And then the engagement throws off the data. We need permission, and we need to do it in a technically correct way. But if you stand back from it, the challenge for brands is still that very empirical, fundamental marketing imperative of how do you make yourself valuable enough for consumers want to do business with you. And I think that's we can get blinded sometimes by the detail and the data and the tech, but you do have to stand back from that. And that might mean brands need to share more. They might need to create online communities. They might need to give preferential access to staff. They might need to give multi-channel e-commerce excellence. You've got to do stuff. It's not talking, it's doing. And how do we engineer that compelling value proposition that will mean we can play effectively in this zero first-party game?
Yeah, and there's been quite a few questions coming in. I mean, so talking about first-party data, PII, in email, within data capture, acquisition. I think one area we haven't covered today, but is very extensive in the report, is attitudes towards collection and use of zero and first-party data. So I'm just going to I'm just monitoring that the questions coming in, and it just segued nicely into what you were talking about. But I think for the person asking those questions, there is a lot in there in the value of collecting richer first-party data, and it's not, I think the focus can be too much on advertising with the third-party cookies, and actually it is probably this inflection point where it's time to work harder in your own channels. The personalized, the identification of visitors to your website as a great example. One that I'm very invested in is if you can materially identify 10% more website visitors and activate those into a remarketing channel, or even personalize that experience in the website, you can negate any other issues. You can thrive. And going back to don't want to be reliant on Google or Facebook or whoever when they keep making all these changes. Again, it's another way that you can thrive. Or loyalty schemes, or polls, surveys, quizzes, gamification, all these different ways that you can collect more opted-in first-party data and zero-party data. The more you can do with personalization across your own channels, and it's not just about acquiring more customers, which is where the emphasis can always be. So
yeah, and I was also thinking if there are people interested in learning more specifically on acquisition strategies in the Cookieless world, a few months ago our Cookieless world strategist actually gave a little session on that, with really practical tips on things that we're doing with certain customers as a methodology, and really give some ideas. So if there are people interested in that, we can also send a link and pick those out.
Another point I'd make around emails, it used to be a volume game. If you weren't going to deliver 500,000 audience to Facebook for retargeting, which then they would dedupe down to, you'd lose a third of them in terms of the matching. So if it wasn't hundreds of thousands, you weren't in that game. I think the world's going to change with the ad tech and martech. We will be able to economically, cost effectively leverage tighter audiences. You've got to make sure you can measure the return on those audiences. But I think the game is changing there. There's no kind of quick answer to that question in terms of what the big boys doing with the data. They're doing a range of things, but there's definitely a different lens being applied to the data opportunity and the data challenge. And I guess that's where we have, if there's follow-on conversations, I think we can definitely drill into those areas, Kalina and Anthony. It's probably difficult to do on a general session. But.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to be mindful of the time, I think we have time for one more question, and I'm just going to read it for everyone. So we started investing time at Google Flock, which was abandoned. How can you be sure that the cookieless world is actually going to happen? Maybe Anthony,
Okay.
you can answer that one.
So Flock, Google Flock, in case, Federated Learning of Cohorts, I think was the name. So yeah. Okay. So I think last year, that was it last year or whenever it was, it's gone out of my mind now, but that was Google's first, I guess, idea for the replacement of the third-party cookie. So I won't go into the detail of that, but sounds like you invested some time in that. Google then said, hey, this is not the solution, and we're going forward with something that they called Google Fledge. And Google Fledge is kind of still there. It's just they decided to change the name, 2 months ago? 3 months ago, I'm not sure, but anyway, they decided to change the name.
Yeah,
So
I think people still know it as Fledge, but it's now Google Protective Audience API.
That's right. Yeah. So Protected Audience API is Google's way to do remarketing without third-party cookies. It's been and it's one element of the Google Privacy Sandbox. So within the Google Privacy Sandbox, there's like 9-10 different solutions. That is one of them. GA4 coming out on the 1st of July. I think that's the first step that we're going towards. I guess the question was, how do we know it's actually going to happen when they keep changing the goalposts and the names of things?
Yeah.
Well, GA4 is the first step, right? So that is happening July 1st. Anyone who's logged into their GA account will see that big countdown timer if they haven't implemented it already. Actually, Google's Privacy Sandbox website, you can actually go on their own website. They have a timeline on there. You'll see it might freak you out if you haven't been there. They're in testing phase for a lot of these cookieless solutions right now, but actually coming out of testing phase into general availability in Q3 2023. That's, I don't know if that's July or September, probably further along in Q3, but could be 1st of July. They've announced that 1% of all Chrome users will be moved into will be moved into a cookieless world as of January 2024, and then the deadline for mass move away from third-party cookies altogether is Q3 2024. So I think with GA4 coming, they're very visible timelines now. I don't think there's any question that this isn't going to happen and it's not going to shift again. So yeah, hopefully that answers.
It looks like it's coming, and yeah, I can imagine that everyone here can relate to the GA4 emails and banners and everything to get your attention to make the switch.
And on our website at the moment, you can sign up for a webinar. Is it next week or in 2 weeks? Where we are going to be doing a live demonstration of Google's Protected Audience API, aka Google Fledge, aka the replacement for Flock. But we're actually going to be showing a live test demo of that in action.
Yeah.
So anyone interested, you should be able to find it on the website.
Yeah, we have some exclusive access to the test environment, so we're going to do a live demo for everyone interested. Meet us next week. We're going to send you some details by email. All right. Well, on this note, I think we can wrap things up. A quick reminder: 15th of June is our official launch day, and we're just in 2 days. So this is when you're going to receive the report and the recording of this webinar coming to your inbox. With this, I think we can close the session. Thanks, Linus. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Anthony, for hosting today's session, and for everyone else in the chat and joining us live today. Thank you for joining us. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'll be happy to continue the discussion. Thanks a lot, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Galina. Have a good day.
thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.